Alrighty, guys, for the last time, I said it last week with Creature Commandos, but I'm saying it here with Skeleton Crew. Let's talk about the finale of this amazing show. I'm a little bit more torn up about this one than I was with Creature Commandos, not going to lie to you, but this is the end. This is the final spoiler discussion, at least for now, because again, I've said this many times. Here's hoping for season 2. You know, we'll see how the viewership numbers ultimately shake out, and I'm sure we'll do a story about this later on where we talk about the final viewership numbers, and hopefully they're really good, but here's hoping season 2. But anyways, this is a full spoiler discussion for the finale and the series as a whole of Skeleton Crew. So if you haven't seen the final episode, if you haven't seen the whole show, then make sure to just save this for later and come back once you have, because we are going to be discussing full spoilers for Skeleton Crew episode 8 and the series. So let's get started, guys. Do I need to give any context here? I'm sure I do if you're joining us for the first time here. If you are, welcome. Just to be very brief and very candid about it all, I love this show. I don't think there's a single episode I dislike. Sure, are there a couple things here and there that I go, not my favorite thing, like the owl character, not my favorite thing. And I think episode 6 was a little too short, and it just felt kind of stationary, although the moments in episode 6 between KB and Wim, so beautiful, so well acted, so great. And so, yeah, I mean, even those episodes I still really enjoyed, and it's just been a joy, you know? That's the one thing about this show that you just can't say. Because look, yeah, I mean, sure, The Penguin, amazing show, brilliant show. Was The Penguin a joy to watch? Not really. It was pretty disheartening and pretty sad to watch, just on an emotional level. I'm not talking about quality-wise. I'm just talking about the emotions that it elicited. You're like, oh man, bad people doing bad things, and then worse people doing worse things. And that's totally fine. I mean, TV, not just TV, movies, art in general. Art is supposed to elicit different emotions out of you. But for me, there's a reason why, shows like, for example, Friends is my favorite show of all time. And The West Wing, I love The West Wing. And, we're not going to get too political here, but a lot of the episodes of The West Wing are about people in the real world figuring out, trying to solve problems and, do good things for people and all that kind of stuff. And even a show like Stranger Things, which again, it's kind of, that's not, the most lighthearted show of all time, but it has characters that are just trying to do the right thing. And sometimes you just need that. Sometimes you do need anti-heroes and you need, morally ambiguous characters, but sometimes you just, and for me, with these TV shows, you just need characters who are trying to do the right thing and the joy. Star Wars has not brought me joy in a long time. That's what I realized here. And just to feel that every single week is, I mean, it's not insignificant, right? Like the fact that a TV show, and it, even though the episodes were short, and that is really the biggest complaint I have about the series as a whole. We'll talk at the very end just to kind of wrap things up, but just, to get out in front of it, really the biggest complaint I have with the show is just that it was too short. I mean, each episode was too short. Now, did I want each episode to be an hour long? I mean, if they could have done it well, then sure, but I don't think that's the format of a show like this. But 25 minutes in some cases, like 30 minutes in most cases, it felt just too short. But, even with that being said, just the pure joy that you feel every week. And I was smiling, I was laughing, I had tears in my eyes again this episode. It was just awesome. So we're going to dive into the episode and go through my notes here, go through the plot again, and go through some of my favorite moments, and then at the very end, we'll wrap up here, and we'll talk about the series as a whole. So, I started out writing my notes here. I usually like to write a pre-thought at the beginning of my notes, and really the only thing I wrote here was just that I'm really going to miss the show. And if you make season 2, please have longer episodes, but I'm really going to miss the show. So, the last episode ended with Jod with the lightsaber, and that was something that I actually talked about at the end of the episode, or at the end of the spoiler discussion rather. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised either though, because the assumption that you're making is, Jod's going to pull out the lightsaber and he's going to start attacking people. And I was like, no, I wouldn't be surprised if he just puts it away, immediately. He shuts off the lightsaber and he's like, no, I'm the good guy here. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And so then Jod goes through this whole charade and he's like, I am the emissary and I'm here to protect you all. And then Fern, you're insubordinate. So I'm going to take you up to the supervisor, which, that's the other mystery, right? Who's the supervisor? Meanwhile, we cut back to Wim and his dad, and they're having a conversation. And look, I mean, Wim's dad, I'm so glad that we got to see a different side of him, because it was getting a little old. Like, of course you're excited to have your son back, but come on, are you going to really talk to him about, what was it called? Not the annexation, that's the wrong word. The assessment, not annexation. The assessment. And as soon as Wim gets back, he's like, you're going to take the assessment now. And Wim's like, come on, Dad. And I mean, you get it. The dad just wants what's good for him. But also, I mean, how could you ever unsee what you've seen? You've seen the world, right? And I mean, he's also seen the bad things, sure, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but with the line that Fern has later that I loved. But anyways, Wim's seen the bad things. He's seen bad people like Jod, and it's just, how can you unsee that, and how can you take an assessment, right? People have life-changing moments like that, and to have it as a kid, it's you totally understand that. You totally understand. I'm also wondering, because I feel like in the last episode, there was a line where the dad was like, no, like he made reference to understanding what the great work really was, and actually, interestingly enough, we don't get the full picture of what the great work is. Now, that didn't take away from my enjoyment. It wasn't like a Dune prophecy situation where I was like, what? Like, you didn't answer these questions and, you're just saving them for season 2? I think season 1 answered everything it needed to answer and still left the door open for some more mysteries, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But, it makes me wonder, did he drink the Kool-Aid, or is it, is there something else? Like, does he know more than he's letting on, the dad? Well, I'm sure we'll find out at some point. Eventually. And so we finally head up to the tower, and the question is, who's the supervisor, right? It's very Wizard of Oz kind of deal up there, the big booming voice, and it is a droid. Actually, it's funny because I think it was on the John Campea show where I heard the theory just hours before watching the episode, like, I just think it's a droid, someone said. And I was like, interesting. I don't know if I'd like that. Turns out it was a droid. Now, I'm not too dissatisfied with it because ultimately it's not really, the point really wasn't about the supervisor. I still think they intentionally left it vague enough to where, honestly, the plot of season 2 could be about the quote-unquote real supervisor, like the person who programmed the droid or whatever, because that's a mystery, right? I mean, sure, you destroyed the droid, whatever. But even in The Wizard of Oz, it's like, okay, there's the big, scary floating head, but who's behind that? And so I think there is, if they wanted to go in this direction, there's something there for a season 2, talking about who actually made the droid. I'm still convinced that Tag Renid, I think was the first pirate's name, still has something to do with this, but we shall see. It's also interesting, too, that the robot deduces that Jod is a liar because the last communication that they got, or at least the supervisor droid got, was about Order 66, and he was like, hey, all the Jedi are dead. So what's going on here? And so then the droids try to attack him. Jod does seem to have some skills with the lightsaber, and he reveals a little bit more about his backstory a little bit later on, and he destroys the supervisor. So again, I'm sure we'll get some more details. If they do a season 2, I'm sure we'll get some more details there. He then starts to coerce Fern and her mother, and by pointing lightsabers at their faces, and just makes me dislike it more and more. You know what? The show did a really good job, at least, because I think that for the most part, throughout the show, I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe there's a redemption arc coming for Jod. And then by the end of it, I was like, no, he's too far gone. Now, I say that now, and I keep referencing, maybe I'm just manifesting at this point, but if they do a season 2 later on, sure, there's a potential to make him kind of that Loki character, right? Because you watch the Avengers, and Loki is irredeemable, right, in the Avengers. But then you watch Thor: The Dark World or Ragnarok, and you're like, all right. So there's always a chance. But I mean, Jod pointing a lightsaber at children's faces, come on, man, come on. Also, what I love about this show, and it's a nitpick, but it's a nitpick that stands out to me a little bit more as I watch these Disney Plus Star Wars shows, is that in other Disney Plus Star Wars shows, the lightsabers seem so fake, and I don't know why. It's not something I ever really bring up because, honestly, I always say this, the visual effects and whatnot, unless they're just atrociously bad, they don't really ever make or break something for me. It's always the story, it's always the characters, but, it's something that I want to point out. And like in the Acolyte, not just the Acolyte, Mandalorian even, like some of Ahsoka's lightsabers look so fake. And I really appreciate here, I think Jod's lightsaber looks great. It's such a small thing. But anyways, and so then he calls it ship, and the ship flying over the neighborhood with that perspective, it was actually really well shot. Just the big looming ship coming over the suburbs, and they destroy the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, that's terrifying. But then the kids hatch a plan, and the plan is to call the X-Wings. Great plan. Great plan. And I love the scenes where Wim, KB, and Neil, and also the dad, are riding the bikes. It's so 80s. It feels like such, I didn't grow up in the 80s, but, from what I've seen, it's so 80s. Even Stranger Things, which is another show that's evoking the 80s, where they're all riding their bikes around. Love it. And Wim's dad, becoming a real stand-up guy, being a part of the team. And not only that, but, speaking of heroes, Neil being a real hero, going after that turbo laser and really saving the day. I love Neil, love all these kids, love the characters. They're awesome. They're so awesome. And then, and then, so just as I thought, okay, this finale is really fun, I'm really enjoying it, the show is really good, and the finale is really good, and then it does that thing. Because last episode I was saying there were a couple moments where I teared up, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. That's like when the kids are reunited with their parents and whatnot, and when the parents in the hologram, and I don't know, this line just spoke to me, because again, there are shows where, you want the morally ambiguous characters, but I love the shows when good people, reveal good things about the world. And Fern's line to her mom when she says, I went out there into the world and I saw all the bad. And I'm thinking right now, in particular, we talked about this a little bit in last week's episode about the LA wildfires, and, the Fern's line about there's so much bad in this world. There's so much wrong with this world. I saw it. But everywhere we went, there were good people, And I was thinking about the LA fires just in terms of all the amazing things that we're seeing people doing despite the horrendous tragedies. And it's applicable to, a lot of things in life. And in that moment, I said, this show has just stolen my heart. It has just taken every emotional, ounce of me, and it has captured it, and it has said, you are going to love this show, and I love this show. I love this show. I'm so invested in the finale. Even after that, with KB flying with Smee's head, I'm just like, I'm so on board. The owl, to be fair, the hologram of the owl took me out of it a little bit. Kim is not my favorite character in Star Wars, I'm not going to lie. But, I'm also glad that episode paid off a little bit more, because I was like, I'd be fine if that was just sort of a filler episode on that moon. But, it did pay off. And then KB's ship crashes, and now Jod is like, oh, I feel bad for killing a kid. When you were threatening kids earlier, I knew in that moment KB was fine. That's like, other moments were more emotionally devastating to me throughout this show. When KB's ship went down, I'm like, it's not that type of show. I don't think, because there were other moments where I was like, maybe it is that kind of show. And we'll get there in just a second. But I was like, KB's fine. KB's totally fine. And then Jod gives some backstory. So apparently Jod was not trained formally in the Jedi Council or the Jedi on Coruscant, but rather he was a kid, like a homeless kid or somebody who lost their home, scrounging around, I guess a rogue Jedi. And he says, she, Ahsoka? Is there a connection? Could that be a connection? I wonder. Now, I haven't made that connection before. There were plans, I know, a long time ago to connect all these shows, and I don't know if Skeleton Crew was a part of that. Was his master Ahsoka? Could it have been? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it, because he says that his master was killed. So maybe not, but just a thought, because his master, he says she. I don't know. I mean, there can only be so many that we know of, but then they can always just make up somebody else. And honestly, the more that you make up that survive Order 66, the more ridiculous Order 66 seems like. It's like half of them seem like they survived in the end of the day. Anyways, so it seems like his master, you can correct me if I'm wrong, just this is me reading into it. So maybe he was actually trained on Coruscant. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like he was trained just kind of on the run, and then they killed his master. So again, that's all the explanation I need for now. I'd like to get some more backstory about this later on. Maybe it is Ahsoka, maybe not. But, for now, that's all the backstory I needed. That is all the backstory I needed. And so then all the, Wim and his dad show up, and Wim is trying to break down the barrier, to shut down the barrier to get the X-Wings through. And he has the lightsaber to Wim's dad's throat, and Wim is about to press the lever. And it's that classic choice, like, do I do it? Do I save my loved one? Or do I do the quote-unquote right thing? And in the end, it worked out. But my gosh, I thought, is it that kind of show? Are they going to kill his dad? I was convinced for a second, because with KB, I was like, she's fine. She's totally fine. With Wim's dad, I was like, are they going to do it? And they didn't. And I'm glad, because it would have been a very different kind of ending if they had killed any of these characters. It's just not that kind of show, Like, I think characters can die, and it can be really impactful. It's just not that kind of show. And I love it for that. I love it for that. Also, Fern's mom. Took you that long to do the right thing? I get it. You're attached to your reality or whatever. But my gosh, I just pull the lever. Took you that long. But then we get a great shot of Wim with the lightsaber. And I don't know if he's going to ever be a Jedi or not. People were speculating, like, is he a Jedi? Is he Force sensitive? I don't really care. Doesn't have to be. Or you could write it in a way where it makes sense. And but it's a really cool shot. It's a great shot. So that moment of triumph, right? I was smiling. I was cheering. And the New Republic shows up. I was cheering for that. And yeah, I mean, it's great. There's a beautiful shot too where Jod knows he's lost and the kids have gone. and he's staring out the window. I almost thought, is this going to be a moment where the ship crashes into the tower and they kill him? It seems like he's alive, though. We don't really get the epilogue sort of ending to this show. We just see the New Republic ships flying around. By the way, Tantive 4 cruiser kind of, moving around, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, we don't get a resolution for that. I think that's fine, totally fine. I didn't need a whole Lord of the Rings style epilogue to this show. I just think it is what it is. You just enjoy. You enjoy it. And then they go and, the kids go and find KB. It was a beautiful shot of her falling down onto the coins. And she's okay. They're all okay, which is a huge sigh of relief. And Smee is also okay. Huge sigh of relief. I'm sure they're going to fix him later on. And that's it. That's the show. I don't know if you can tell in my voice. There is just such joy. So I keep using that word, but I mean it. There is such joy I felt every single episode. I was towards the beginning, I was waiting and being like, it's gonna get bad, it's gonna get bad, it's gonna get bad. It never did. This show, and by the time we got to episode 6, 7, and 8, it was like, no, it's just not gonna get bad. And it didn't. I cannot believe how much I love this show. Is it as good as a show like WandaVision? No, I don't think so. No, but it's up there. I mean, it's better than I think every other Marvel show. I'll say that, and it's obviously my favorite Star Wars show. I know Andor is different. I didn't like Andor as much as other people. I really did like Andor, but some people were like, "This Andor is the greatest thing Star Wars has ever done." I'm not there with Andor. I'm really looking forward to season 2, but I'm not there with Andor. But this show, by far and away, if we ever do another ranking of all the shows and all the movies of Star Wars, this is, I don't know. Could it be? Is it sacrilegious to say it could be up there with the original trilogy? We'll see, because I have Rogue One as my second favorite Star Wars movie, and I know that that's a little sacrilegious, honestly. This might be up there. We'll see. But guys, that was it about, my coverage of Skeleton Crew. I am hoping by next week, announcement, deadline, they are shooting Skeleton Crew Season 2 next week. It's coming out December 2026 or 2025 or January 2026. I really hope so, because there's more story to tell. These kids are awesome, and they're only going to get older, so just kind of capture the moment, But yeah, the show, I hope everyone who is behind the show is rewarded. I mean, money-wise, sure. But, I mean, in terms of just the fact that they're given the credit they deserve. John Watts, especially, I talked about this in my immediate reaction. He deserves the world for this show and for everything he's done with the Spider-Man trilogy that I love so dearly. And I've heard he's done other amazing things with other shows as well. Didn't he just do that movie called Wolves? Was that him? I don't remember. Anyways, he's amazing, and I hope that they're all back for season 2. Guys, what did you think about Skeleton Crew? If you didn't like it, it's totally fine. But I just love to hear why. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and would just, love to hear everything you have to say about Skeleton Crew. Guys, it has been an honor and a joy to talk about Skeleton Crew. We're going to take a little bit of a break, I think, for covering shows weekly. I don't think we're going to do Severance or Harley Quinn, although I will be watching those 2 shows. But probably the next time you see me for weekly reviews, because of course we're going to be on the Access Blockbusters channel every day for the foreseeable future, so not leaving there, but I mean just for weekly television reviews, probably will be Daredevil Born Again. I almost said Daredevil season 4, Daredevil Born Again, and then from there it's like go Daredevil Born Again. We're going to cover Last of Us season 2, we're going to cover, and Andor season 2 we're going to cover. It's going to be awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on all these segments. I really, it's been amazing. So let me know what you thought about season 1, I hope, of Skeleton Crew in the comments down below.